Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello to everybody. My name is Leslie Nips. I am the founder and organizer of the Western Constellations Intensive. I live in the United States, in the Southwest region, in the state of New Mexico. We are in the fog in the desert today. The Western Intensive that I organize, we're in our 7th year. We're going to be meeting down here in March. And we have a terrific faculty with Susie Tucker. And new this year is Dragos, Riti. And so it is really a delight to welcome him here. This is his first time formally bringing his work to the United States. And so there are a lot of people in this meeting who are not in the United States. A lot of Dragos's friends from Eastern Europe are here, and we're really glad you're here. And we really do want to introduce him to some of the folks over here in the Western Hemisphere who don't know his work. I'm really excited he's part of the team. He and I first met, I think, was it 2016? Dragos in Germany, and at the German intensive there, and we were part of a kind of a fun group. Kept on getting into a little bit of trouble, and I was just really impressed with his grounded approach to the work. And so this year, when I was looking at some new possibilities, I invited him and he said yes. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a sec. But before we do that, I just want to acknowledge that the other faculty member is here. Susie, go ahead and unmute yourself and just say hello.
Hi, everybody. What a pleasure it is to get to be here today. I really look forward to hanging out with you a little bit, Dragos, before we get to do it in person.
Thank you for being here, Susie. It's really, really lovely to feel the team building for the event in March. I'm going to go ahead and put that link for the event in the chat so that people can see that and play with that. But for now, we are in your hands. Dragos.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. Hello, everybody. Like Leslie said, my name is Dragos Riti. I am from Romania, and I am doing this work since 2011. And yes, we did meet in Germany in Bernried, Leslie, but I guess it was 2015. Yeah, and yeah, we had some great times, and we had some great teachers in those times. First of all, I would like to thank you all for showing up. I would like to thank you all for wanting to meet me, and I would like to thank also to Leslie and to Susie that they made this possible for me, and they invited me to the US intensive. I'm a bit I'm excited, and I'm a bit nervous. It feels like the first day in school now. But hopefully I will get over this, and we can move on. So the theme of the workshop is healing the transgenerational trauma. I'm not sure about how much of healing we can do, but at least from my experience, we can look at it and have it in a different place than it was before in our system. And we don't have too much time. We have only an hour and a half, and you probably will have questions. I'm not sure I will be able to answer all your questions. We'll take a few of them. I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. If you want to know more about me, just please ask the question, and maybe Leslie will help me with the questions. If not, we can go and do a bit of work. And being such a short time, so many people, we will start with a meditation, a visualization, and then some questions, and then maybe some exercise, and then we'll see how the field is building up, and maybe we'll do a constellation, or we will explore something that it's really necessary or deep showing up in the field. So I was telling you, I'm doing this work since 2011. I have a background in engineering, and like 15 or 20 years ago, if anybody would have told me that I'm going to do this, I would have told him he's crazy. But life has more to offer you than you can ever imagine. So in 2008, I met my actual wife, and in the same year, she's giving me birthday present, and the birthday present is a family constellation workshop. I have never expected this. And when I reached that family constellation workshop, I got the answer to a long life question, an existential question, which I was, holding up since I was 16 years old. And the question was, why am I here? What do I have to do on this planet, on this earth? What's my purpose on this life? And when I met family constellation, the answer was there. And since that moment, I just pursued this path, and I'm doing this, like I told you, since 2011. I train with Barbara Morgan, which some of you might know. She's the editor of the international constellation journal, The Knowing Field. I train with Jutta ten Herkel, which was also one of the early students of Birth. And those trainings were in Romania. And after that, I started traveling. And this is how I met Leslie and some other great people and teachers like Hunter Beaumont, Bill Mannell, and some other people with whom I'm still in contact. In 2010, I met Bert Hellinger in Romania. He came for a 3-day workshop, and I had the chance to do a constellation with him. And then 2013, I joined his intensive in Bad Reichenhall in Germany, and I did a training with Sophie Hellinger, with his wife, on cosmic power or cosmic energy. So this is a bit of my background. And the theme of the workshop comes from the things that I've encountered during my practice all these years, how people are responding when a stimulus is present in their life, even though the response should be a normal one, the response is exaggerated. And I was asking myself where this is coming from, what is behind that. So, step by step, exploring this, I found out that most of the things that are happening to us are coming from our inheritance, from our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, and we have no idea what we're carrying. And that, for me, it was a door open to explore this path and to see how we can get to a place of healing or resolution, or putting things in their right place, what is needed to be honored, what is needed to be included, and what needs maybe to be brought to balance. So this is a little bit my story. So if you have questions, I'm open to do a session. I'm inviting you either to click the electronic hand for questions, either writing something in the chat, and then Leslie might ask your questions. And I will stop. By the time you have your questions, I will keep talking a little bit more about the theme of the workshop. We are facing now very interesting times, and if you look back on the last 2-3 years, we've been through a pandemic, which has put most of us in a different place that we were used to be, in a different place than we were expecting to see our lives. And that somehow helped us to, or at least this is what I've seen, helped us to turn our focus inwards, to look at ourselves. And I've seen in those times many people asking for help or going in therapy. So that was one thing, and that is at a larger level, at the bigger level, it's a trauma. It's a trauma which will be reflected probably in our generation, but also probably in generations to come. And it linked also to something that happened to our ancestors some generations ago, when humanity went over to this kind of situation. And then just after the pandemics, we had the war between Russia and Ukraine, and this is also activating something inside of us. And many people had many different reactions in front of this, event. And I don't know how it was in North America. You're just over the ocean, but here in Europe, there have been many ways of expression when this happened. So, if we're looking a little bit at those things, we will see that we are coming in this world, every one of us, with our own backpack. And beside, the physical characteristics that we're inheriting from our parents, there are more than that it's in our backpack. And these are all the life experiences and all the things that our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents have lived, which are recorded in the DNA, and then the DNA is passed on to the next generation. And then when we encounter something similar, then something is being activated inside, and then we are reacting. And sometimes, or most of the time, the reaction is disproportionate in front of the event that it's in front of us. And this is a sign that we're hitting something bigger. It might be something from our experience during this lifetime, but it can be something that happened way before us. And with the help of constellation, we can explore this place, this field, to see where it's coming. From what I've seen from my experience, we don't need to know who has been traumatized or where it's coming. What it's needed actually in the system is that somebody looks at the phenomenon and makes a place for what happened, for the people that have been touched by this phenomenon, and maybe include what is to be included, put in the right place what needs to be put in the right place, and also, like I said, bring a balance in between what happened there. And the way I'm looking at those things is using questions during the initial interview with the client to see from where the pattern is coming. Where is it heading? Is it from this life, or it's something that we don't know about it? And also some other people in our family are connected to this pattern, like brothers, sisters, parents, great parents, and so on. So it's a bit of an exploration going in the actual system, and then transgenerationally. Okay, so I see there are some questions here.
Yeah, Dragos. And I really appreciate this question from Pauline. I'm sorry, from Sarah. The North American context. You were talking about different things going on recently, the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Locally, we're dealing with a lot of gun violence. And she was wondering about its connection to transgenerational trauma. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's most probably a connection with the early days of, how civilization has been built in the United States. Maybe to that, and maybe also to something that has been carried on from, the old continent to the new continent, and of course, there'd be some other things. But I think it's very much linked to those early days when people, had to fight for their lives, or, in order to survive. And this is something that remained very strong in our DNA. And more than that, I think this is a blind loyalty, unconscious, of course. Those things are happening unconsciously. This is a blind loyalty to some of our ancestors. We're hitting something. Either somebody in our family has been threatened or killed by somebody with a gun. Either somebody from our family did that to somebody in order to survive or to get something. So, and these things are are coming up, are coming back. And if you look, I don't have a big visibility on what's happening in North America, but I've seen the news with those events, and it's unfortunate. And if you see most of the people that I've seen, acting like that, there are people who are not having a direction. They don't know who they are anymore. They don't know their identity. And for me, it's like the first inhabitants of the North American continent finding themselves lost there, not knowing where they're going. So it might be something linked to that place. I'm not sure. There's some exploration needed to be done. I hope it answered the question.
And just, I know some North Americans will say the first European inhabitants, of course, North America was inhabited before those lost ones showed up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the indigenous. I'm talking about,
Right.
the European who came and colonized the continent.
Right, right. And then, Pauline, and this might be for later, because this is kind of takes us on a different trajectory. But she was interested in the cosmic power aspect, but maybe that's for later to see where we go with transgenerational healing. But she found that intriguing.
Okay. Yeah, I can share some thoughts about that in the end. All right. So I think I prepared a little bit the ground about what we are going to explore today. And if there are no more questions, I will just invite you to do a meditation, a guided visualization. And just take a few moments to find a good place for you to be at ease. All right, and just please close your eyes, and the only thing you have to do is breathe and let the air in and then out, and just focus on your breath and see how it feels in your body, if there's any physical sensation or any emotion coming up when you're inhaling air, when your lungs are being filled with air. And then notice if there's a physical reaction or emotion when you're exhaling the air out of your lungs. And do this 5 or 6 times and just notice what's happening in your body. And if there's something, if there's a constraint or a relaxation, that's fine. Just let it be there. Don't try to change anything or judge anything. Just, focus on your breath and keep breathing in and out and see what's happening in the body. And the more you do that, the more you are relaxing your body. You can feel relaxation going from your head to your neck to your shoulders, your arms, your body, your feet. Yeah. And the more you do that, you feel relaxed. And the more you do that and you focus on your breath, you are bringing yourself here in the here and now. And you can feel your body, you can feel yourself. And just keep breathing and be aware of yourself. Be aware how you're sitting, be aware of your breath. Yeah. And just stay in silence for a few moments. And then just turn your sight inwards, whatever that might mean to you. Just look at yourself and see what's happening when you do that. Is there any emotion popping up or a physical sensation? And if there's something for you in there, just take it as much as you need it. And then if you don't need it, just let it go. If it has something to tell you or to show you, it might be an emotion or a physical sensation or an image maybe, or a word, whatever, it's there for you. And see how it feels if you're encountering something. See what's in there for you. And then from that place, just bring in front the image of your father and see what's happening when you do this. You know, just observe without trying to change anything or trying to judge anything. Maybe you had a good relationship with your father, maybe not, or maybe you didn't knew him at all. It doesn't matter. Just bring him there and see what's happening with you. And notice if he stays close to you, if he looks at you, just notice everything that's happening with him in relation to you. Then beside your father, just bring in your mother. And again, notice what's happening with you. What's going on in your body? What's going on with your emotions? Just notice without trying to change anything or to change. Then just look at the whole picture, mother and father, and see what's going on when you have them both in your sight. Do they look at each other? Do they look at you? Maybe they want to tell you something or give you something. Or just observe all those little things. And then, if you can, look at them and just say, thank you. And see what happens inside of your body or with your emotion when you do this. Can you say it easily? Is it difficult for you? Or maybe you cannot say it at all. It doesn't matter. Just observe. Don't try to change anything or to judge things. Just see how it feels. Then behind your father, bring his parents, your grandparents on your father's side, your grandfather and grandmother. And again, see what's going on with you when you're bringing them in. If there's any emotion or physical sensation, and observe without trying to change anything or judge anything. Just see how they are. If they're looking at you, if they're looking at themselves, at your parents, or they want to give you something. So just look what's going on. Then behind your mother, just bring in her parents, your grandfather and grandmother from your mother's side. And again, observe your body and your emotions and see what's going on. Then take the full picture in and see how you feel now standing in front of your parents and grandparents. How does that make you feel? Do you feel small? Do you feel big? Just notice. Notice what's happening in your body. Notice what's happening with your emotions. Then behind your grandfather from your father line, just bring in his parents, your great grandparents on your father's line, on your grandfather's paternal grandfather. Then observe what's going on with you. And beside them, bring in the parents of your grandmother, of your father's side, your great grandparents. On your father's side, on your grandmother, paternal grandmother. And again, see what's going on with you. Take a moment to notice what's going on with your body, what's going on with your emotions, and observe those people. If they're looking at you, maybe want to tell you something, or just, they're looking in a different place. Then behind your maternal grandfather, bring in his parents, his father and his mother, your great grandparents from your maternal grandfather. And again, notice what's happening. Then beside them, bring in the parents of your grandmother on your mother's line, your great grandparents on your mother's line from your maternal grandmother. And again, just notice what's happening with you and notice what's happening with them. And then again, take the full picture in and see how does it feel to stand in front of your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and notice if they look at you, if they look at each other, maybe they want to tell you something. Just notice everything that's happening there. Then behind your great grandparents on your father's line, bring in the great great grandparents. Two for each great grandparent. You will have 8 great great grandparents on your father's line. And again, observe what's happening with you when they're showing up one after the other, or maybe in couples behind your great grandparents on your father's line. Just notice, see how it feels in your body. It's easy to stay in front of them, it's difficult. Then on your mother's line, you do the same. You bring in the great great grandparents, 8 great grandparents on your mother's line, 2 for each great grandparent. And you just notice what's going on, how you feel, without trying to change anything or to judge anything. Just look at them and see how it feels. Then again, take the full picture in and see how it feels. Having all those people standing in front of you, all those people who have lived their lives, who have made sacrifices in order to survive, or who had children, who lived their life as they could. Then behind the great great grandparents on the father's line, bring their parents, 16 great 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 grandparents on the father's line, and again notice what's happening. And again do the same on the mother's line, 16 great 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 grandparents, and see what's happening when all these people are coming in. And then again take the full picture in and have the dimension of this generations standing one in front of the other. And if you can, try to bring as many generations back behind the great 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 grandparents and see how it feels. And then again, take the full picture in and see, notice how it feels for you to stand in front of all these people, in front of all those generations of people, and try to feel how life came from the oldest generation, the farthest generation through each one of them came to you, came from one generation to the other. Just try to feel how it flows from one generation to the other and then comes to you. Yeah. And look at all those people who, lived their life as best as they could, who had made sacrifices, who maybe had lost relatives. And despite everything that happened, they still survived and they were able to give life to the next generation until it reached you. See how it feels when you are connected to that. And just stay a few moments in silence to be able to see everybody and to feel how life is flowing. And maybe some of these people want to tell you something or want to give you something, or maybe they're pointing in some direction. Whatever is there for you, just observe and take whatever you can take and leave whatever is needed to be left. Then let them go, starting with the oldest generation, the great, 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 great grandfathers, grandparents, and one by one, you just let them go. Then the great, great, great grandparents, then the great, great, great grandparents, then the great, great grandparents, then the great grandparents, until I'm standing again in front of my parents and my grandparents. And just observe, how do you feel now after this journey? And then let also your grandparents go. First on your mother's line, then on your father's line. And then you're just now facing your parents. And notice how you feel now after this journey. And once again, if you can, just tell them, thank you. And see if this thank you has a different quality than the one you said in the beginning. Just notice if it feels different or has different quality. Just observe. Then just let your parents go also. Let first your mother and then your father. And just stay with yourself and with the experience and whatever you might have brought from this journey with you. And then when you're ready, you can come back and open up your eyes. Okay. How do you feel? Is there anybody who wants to share something or to ask a question? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Dragos. And I just want to encourage people, if you want to ask a question or share something, feel free to use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, you will see a raise hand option. So you can speak to him directly.
Okay. So we have sharing Andrea or a question.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to share how it was for me, this experience. It was so intense, and I felt like my mom want to go from that big reunion. And my grandparents from my father's side, they were so embarrassed related to my presence there. And on the other hand, my grandparents of my mother's side, they were so happy and proud of me. And that was my experience.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you as well.
There's a share from, my apologies, I might pronounce your name wrong, Majida or Mahida. She says, I wasn't able to say thanks to my parents for now. A thought that came was, what a mess you've brought forth.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sometimes we're carrying such a deep suffering. It's difficult for us, to say thank you, to say those words. But if you look at that mess, you will see that together with the mess, life came with. And maybe you're alive because of that mess. I don't know. Maybe that will give you something. Oh, yeah. All right. Candice.
Hi. It's interesting that my parents are distantly related. I think like fourth generation apart, and this strong Polish family. And it was really interesting looking back over my ancestors, because at one point they joined, like the great, sort of like the great grandparents. There's just this huge joining of this gigantic castle. But I thought it was really that I was trying to separate them, and they're like, no, we're together. That was pretty wild.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Before Cornelia, there's a couple of questions / comments.
Okay.
Lana says, it was very intense for me too. I wasn't able to open myself beyond my great grandparents. I had a big somatic response.
Yeah.
And connected to that, Ramona says, I cried through the whole process. So perhaps say a word to people who had a very intense experience.
Mm-hmm. So if during the journey you had experienced a somatic, experience, that's a sign that something happened in that place, in that generation. That's a sign that, and it's an invitation, also subtle invitation to look at what happened there. And you don't have to jump into that place. You can go, with baby steps and look at in that place. And maybe if you just stay with that experience, something might pop up and open up to yourself, like a thought or an image or something out of nowhere.
I just unmuted Cornelia.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. During this time, the experience was I didn't see my parents looking at me, but what I lived all my life experience it was that they were always unhappy because they were fighting and arguing all the time. But actually, what I saw in these experiences was that they were smiling at each other and they felt happy somehow, which it's not an image that I have seen in my life experience. And I always live with the fear that they will kill each other, but it's not like how I saw them in this experience. And then my head, like it was like a split like this, like an oblique split, that the upper part was more like a tension that was kind of cutting my head. Especially when I brought the grandparents together, this like increased this intensity of like this upper part was more tense and like kind of, I don't know, very heavy. And the upper part, I couldn't feel it. It was so light, I couldn't feel it at all. And then at the end of the experience, I felt like my hands were sitting on a ball of energy that was so dense that I couldn't go through it with my hands. So it's different.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Maybe I can make a comment on what you shared. Well, sometimes we're living with this image about our parents because this is a very strong expression of what we've seen in their behavior towards each other or towards us. But this image, sometimes we're carrying this image from our childhood, and sometimes the image is distorted, and the more the times passes, then the image gets more and more distorted. And being afraid that your parents will kill each other, that brings you in a place of a burden. You will not be able, unconsciously, you want to save them, but you will not be able. So maybe you need to take a step back and let them do what they do. But before that, before they're trying to kill each other or they were arguing, you know, they loved each other. And that bit of image, we don't see it often. So if you could go in that place and look at that image of your parents, you know, being in love with each other, you know, and looking at life in a different way than what you experienced, that might change your perspective a little bit.
Yeah, no, my father just died like a month ago, and only after that I was able to also see my mom telling that she loved him. She mentioned this a couple of times.
Of course. Otherwise, you won't be here.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, just a couple of things from the chat before the next person with their hand up. Majida says, thanks, because of that mess, I am alive. So that's just as a response to what you said. Carmen, I'm a little unclear on your question in the chat. So if you want to raise your hand, you can ask Dragos directly. And then someone had their hand up, but I think they just put it down. Oh, there's Simona. I will unmute you.
Yes. In my case, what I noticed was that 2 men on my mother's side and 2 men on my father's side, one of them being my father, like, even though I didn't judge it in any way, I could see them at the of ugly in the sense of rejecting, or in the sense of, yeah, like giving me an energy I could not contain. And yeah, I feel that for the first time I could take that in as well. I felt that I see in them some parts that they didn't see themselves.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
And again, Carmen, if you want to raise your hand, feel free to do that. But she did say it was like a big cry from all the women inside. Wow. So something about noticing something with the women in the family.
Yeah. So maybe for some of you, when you did the journey, there were some blanks or some gaps, or you saw more men or more women. Well, that's a sign that, you know, something happened in that generation, in that place. Somebody had to took over things in order to bring the system to survival, and sometimes women had done that because men were not present for no matter what reason. So that's that could be a direction to honor women that had done that in your family. Sometimes you cannot see faces because something is not yet ready to be revealed. But by doing this exercise, you can do it by yourself. And the more you do it, the more things will open, and you know, information might pop up, or something might, you know, open up and show you something. And of course, you might encounter a lot of sadness and suffering. It was part of the journey, and it's there, and it's also part of us. So there are people who are saying, "Oh, I have this transgenerational trauma. It's not mine. I want to get rid of it." Well, yeah, but it's also yours. If you feel it, if you have that feeling of, you know, sadness or whatever is there, it's part of you. It's also yours. It has been given to you. And what you can do, it's just look at it and put it in a different place, in a different shape, maybe, using these tools of family constellation.
Dragos, do let me know. There are a few more questions if at any time you want to go off in a different direction, or if you want to keep
Yeah,
hearing.
I'll just take a couple of questions. Then what I will do, I will invite you to do an exercise, and maybe if you can create breakout rooms for 3 people,
Okay.
I'll give you an exercise, maybe 15 minutes altogether, to experience a little bit how we can connect to those big spaces. So maybe a couple of questions if there are any in the chat.
Well, there are 3 more or 3 comments.
Okay.
You might just hear them and say thank you, or if you have something to add. Pauline said, I felt a huge burden being passed down to me from my father's side. And then on my mother's side, a split that was passed to me to heal, which connects a little bit with what you were just saying.
All right. Thank you.
And then Karen said, I found that there were gaps, exactly what you were just saying. My mother's father's parents from Romania were not able to come present. And my father's mother, who died when she was young, she came in. It was a welcoming, perhaps, as when she died, she was no longer spoken of. So that's nice.
Yeah,
That's really
thank you.
nice.
Beautiful sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the last one is Miriam. I was aware of a growing feeling of pressure to fulfill some duty or responsibility. That's something you might respond to, increasing with the addition of each generation on my father's side. I felt very little connection to ancestors on my mother's side, adding that my parents were both refugees from the Holocaust.
All
So
right.
this sense of duty or responsibility that she felt.
Yeah. It was not clear for me at what point. So it would be interesting to notice at which point you felt the responsibility, and at which point you felt it becoming a burden, if any burden. So that would be one thing you might look at. And then there's also responsibility, considering it's something that just comes to me now. Parents have been through the Holocaust, is the responsibility of life, and in which way this responsibility of life becomes a burden for you. How you can look at how are you looking at life? How do you feel life for you? How could you look in a different way at life? So life is the most precious gift we can get on this world, and that it can become a burden. Yes, responsibility to stay alive. That's true. Yeah, to honor, all the suffering that has happened in the previous generations, and not only for the people who survived, but also for the ones who died. And the responsibility, it's more to the ones who died than the ones that stayed alive. If this makes sense for you.
And I'm wondering if the trick is when there is that heavy responsibility for life, that burden, how that can change into feeling like it's a gift rather than a responsibility.
Well, the responsibility comes with the sense of duty. The sense of duty that you need to do that in order to honor your predecessors, your parents or your grandparents. But if you can look at life in a different, you can look at life a different way, and if you can acknowledge that you can honor your parents or your grandparents in a different way than being responsible for life. And you have been responsible for life until now, and you're still gonna be for it, and because it's part of our nature to be alive and to survive and to thrive. So you can honor them in a different way, not being responsible for the life, but really fully living our life, my life, in order to honor what they were not able to live all the potential that they were not able to live in their lives due to the war or the other things that happen around them. People have been killed, family, friends, things like that. Yes, or honoring the faith.
Thank you. I think we're done with the questions for now.
Good. So I have an exercise, which it's simple exercise, and I think it's going to be interesting. And the exercise will be in threes, and not make it too long. About 5 minutes for each person. It would be 15 minutes for everybody. And the exercise is like this. I am me, myself, and I'm setting up my two partners. For one person will be representing the ones that have been sacrificed in my family, in all the generations, the ones that have been left behind, the ones that, have been sacrificed or left behind. And the other partner will represent the ones who had to leave behind, the ones who had to sacrifice, the ones who left behind. So we're having these two energies in our family. These are strong energies, and we're not looking at them as, victim perpetrator, but we're looking at, manifestation. So you're just putting those two representations and you connect with them. And those two representations can look at each other and feel each other and just notice what's happening with you. Just notice what's happening with you. It's not more than that. And maybe you'll reach a point where the energy stays, and then the invitation for you, as looking at those two representations, the one who have been left behind and the ones who have let them behind or sacrificed them, you'll have a sentence to tell them both. And the sentence is, your sacrifice was not in vain. And you notice what's happening when you're saying this, and the representatives also notice what's happening. Then the next one is, we have survived. And again, you notice what's happening with you. And then the last one is, life went on. And again, you notice what's happening with you, and then with the representatives. And then you can do a bit of a sharing, and then you just switch, and then the next one. Oh, I think it's clear enough. Hopefully. All right. Okay.
I want to say, with such a large group, breakout groups can be tricky. So if you do not want to join a group, just don't join it, okay? Just ignore the invitation. And then for those of you who find yourself alone or with only two, give me a minute or two and I'll try and move people around, okay? If you end up with two people, just adapt in the end, okay? It's too large of a group to make really a lot of individual requests fulfilled. So again, if you don't want to join, just don't join. And then if you're by yourself or there are two, wait a minute and I'll try and rearrange a little bit. Anything else, Dragos? 15 minutes, that was right?
15 minutes, yeah, 5 minutes each one. Just keep the timing. So you won't need more than 2 or 3 minutes to do the exercise to really get connected to what's happening there. And it can be very profound. And then just use the sentences and then spare 1 minute for the sharing for each one of you.
And we have a quick request. Someone wrote down the sentences in the chat, which is great.
Yes.
Can you repeat the representatives again? We have a
So
request for that.
one representative is for all the people that have been sacrificed or left behind in order that the system can move on to survive. And it can be, it's not one person, it can be many people in many different generations. But we have a representative for those people who have been sacrificed or left behind. And then the other representative is for the people who have sacrificed those who have been left behind, or for who had no other alternative than, I know, sacrificed the people or their dreams.
And Miriam's question, the statements, the client who's having the constellation says those statements, right?
Yes, the client says, and then, but not before the two representatives are connecting to each other. And if there's emotion or something that needs to be expressed, just let it flow, let it out, okay? And the client does not intervene, you just observe what's happening between those two representatives, and then what's happening with you in connection with them. And when you feel things are coming to a place, then towards the end, you can use the sentences, and you will feel it.
And everyone just do the best you can. Again, this is a really big event.
Yeah.
You'll have a constellation, I promise. Are you set for me to open the rooms? Yeah? Okay.
Okay, Kathleen. And then Christina Simek. Just a second, we have to unmute you, Kathleen.
Yes, as always, I'm always astonished by the specific synchronistic congruence of this work. So my representation, that is to say for my constellation, was so specific to a recent incident that I just go like, great, more information. Thank you. Utterly specific.
All right. How does it feel for you? Did you found something in the exercise for you that, you know, give you a different perspective or released something inside of you?
It just showed me more specifically how I carry a particular split, and I use that word particularly from my ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me permission to accept and acknowledge that in myself.
Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Christina?
Hi, Dragos, thank you. For me, I felt it physically in my abdominal area and tightening. And to be perfectly honest, it didn't feel like those two representations were too far from each other. They both felt very burdensome.
Yes, they are. We know we can imagine the suffering of the people that have been abandoned or, you know, sacrificed or left behind, but we are mostly never thinking about the sacrifice or the suffering of the people that had to do that. And if you look at those two representations, they're very similar. The suffering is very similar. Sometimes the people who had to sacrifice others are suffering more than the ones who are being sacrificed. The ones who are being sacrificed, sometimes they're accepting their fate for the greater good. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Lucy.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet everybody. The response that I had to this was like so much gratitude. I've been researching the family and been through 20 years of estrangement and criminal stuff, and it's all real old. It's a pattern that I was able to identify back to the 1900s. And what I learned and what I got was an empathy for the ones who did the crimes, because they lost what they were trying to keep, their legitimacy, their respectability. Everybody knew they did it. And I didn't have that until these friends stepped in, and this is powerful. And I want to say thank you for this.
Thank you for sharing. And yes, you really made a good point. Thank you. Mariam.
Yeah, well, I did the exercise the best I could. I just had the sentence, your sacrifice was not in vain, when I was representing the people that were sacrificed. I kind of skipped that sentence, and I didn't feel like it was fitting the context, so I'm not sure if there is any like rationale behind what all the three sentences, were there to be applicable to both roles or not?
Well, they're applicable to both roles. Both of them are, you know, that's the use of the sentence were for both, because every part has made a sacrifice. So one part is sacrificing their humanity in order to do something for the system to survive, and the others are sacrificing their lives or maybe something else in order for, you know, the system to go on. There's a sacrifice in both places. And the story behind is that no matter what happened on that time, the system have survived, and we have survived. We are here present at this day because those people have did something that, you know, enable us to be here. And then the last one is just to acknowledge that, you know, no matter the price that has been paid, life went on. And life went on, and we can look at it by honoring what happened in the past, honoring the people sacrificed and those who sacrificed.
Yeah, it was when actually I was doing my system. So to the second role, I just skipped that first sentence, but I wasn't sure. So I thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Good. Well, thank you. I have to give you a big thank you, all of you that have been here today and for listening to me, and maybe some of you I'll meet during the intensive. Maybe some of you I'll be meeting you in a different place. It was an honor for me to be here today. It's an honor for me to be part of the US intensive. Once again, thank you, Leslie, Susie, to bring me and make me part of the team. And I will just send it over to you, Leslie, to close this meeting.
Oh, Dragos, thank you so much. One of the terrible things about these little free things is they're such little tasters, right? Nonetheless, while you all were in your breakout rooms, I shared with him that I had a powerful experience actually with the in the mind meditation. So thank you for that. And I look forward to much, 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 much more. Before we go, I want to share this event that is coming up and that I invite you all to consider. I know some of you live in a very distant place, so it may not be practical, but wherever you live in the world, the 7th annual Western Constellations Intensive is coming in March. It is a beautiful venue in the middle of the Red Rock Desert in New Mexico. It's actually a very historic place, a spiritually powerful place. And so I invite you to look at the website, which you can see is there, and which I have also been putting into the chat. Lots of affordable lodging options are available. And the super early bird, where you save $300, is through January 12th, which will come sooner than you think. We're actually selling pretty quickly. So if you want to come, I encourage you to look at that website, get all the details, and register yourself to ensure that you will have a spot. And it is my honor that the faculty this year is Susie Tucker, Dragos, Riti, and myself. And if we get large enough, we might even invite a fourth for a deep dive. It's not a training. It really is 4 incredibly rich, beautiful days of constellations community. We really create very beautiful bonds between us. and constellations exploration in a lot of different kinds of ways. Before we sign off and we give Dragos a big thanks, are there any specific questions about that anybody has? Or anybody who's been to one in the past who would like to say, come, because I know there's a bunch of you who have been to these in the past. We also have some people who live locally who are very excited this is happening at Ghost Ranch because they know the venue. Any questions or comments about the intensive? It would be great to have you. Always have to give people a second because they have to find the raise hand and or figure out how to put things. Thank you very much. We're getting lots of thank yous, Dragos. No questions, lots of thank yous. Then I think that is it. Dragos, any last words for us? Oh, Lisa has a question. Just snuck in there. Or a comment.
It's a comment, actually. I just want to say that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend, but I really wish that I can, because I have attended in so many past occasions. Now it's further away from me. I am in California, but I really wish that I'm able to attend because I have gotten so much about the sessions in the past. So I wish to see you all there, but I just wanted to share that that it's really so worth it. So that was my comment.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate it. You know what you're talking about. She's been to a bunch of them. Miriam, this is probably going to be the last thing before we
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, sorry I was late today, wrong time zone, wrong in my mind, but I've also been to many conferences and it's just a beautiful experience, like coming back to family and they are always in beautiful locations. And I sincerely hope to go to this one, but due to health reasons, it may not happen. But anyway, thank you, Leslie, for all the hard work you do in putting these together, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, constellation work, and you do it very well.
Thank you, Marion. I hope we see you in March. That would be great.
Yeah, me too.
Dragos, let me leave it with you.
Yeah, I will give you also a big thank you, Leslie, because I know what the intensive means, and you know as well, because you're now organizer, not only participating. And what I can share from my experience with the intensives, although I haven't been in the States before, is that you get great connections. You meet people, and the quality of the connections are absolutely astonishing. You learn things and you meet people and you make friends for life. This is amazing, and I can share it from all my heart. All the experiences that I had in those years in the intensive, and this is the reason we're still in contact, Leslie and myself, and with other people. So if something is calling you, please join. If not, then we'll keep you posted of what's happening there. Okay, much love from me, and a big hug from Romania, a big Romanian hug for you all, and hope to see you sometime somewhere. Thank you.
Feel free to unmute everybody. This is the point where I invite a messy goodbye. Unmute. I'll let you all unmute yourselves. You now have permission. You can unmute and just say goodbye.
Bye bye.
It was lovely.
Bye bye.
Big love.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.